Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, the Raiders made an addition to the defense on Monday. Head coach Coach McDaniels got a vote of confidence from owner Mark Davis, and frustrations are growing with tight end Darren Waller. Your calls and texts will close things out. It's all coming up on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, November 15th, 2022.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. We definitely appreciate everyone who has supported our movement, trying to get everything going on YouTube. Of course, my guy Ari is doing a fantastic job and continuing to get better and better each and every day. So many thanks to Ari and many thanks to you, Raider Nation, for supporting the show. Of course, we got plenty to get to on today's show as Raider Nation is very frustrated. There's a lot of frustrations going on right now with the Silver and Black in 2022 as they're sitting there at 2-7 after following the embarrassing loss to the Colts on Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. Today's episode of the Locked On Raiders podcast is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Before we get into today's episode, I did want to give a special shout out and show some love and prayers out to the families and friends and the whole campus there in Virginia with the passing of the Virginia football players that got shot. 3 University of Virginia football players, wide receiver Lavelle Davis Jr., wide receiver Devin Chandler, and linebacker Deshaun Perry were identified as those killed in an on-campus shooting on Sunday. Police say former football player Christopher Darnell Jones Jr. is in custody currently. And, really, my heart breaks for the families and, of course, those young men that lost their life on Sunday for no reason, right? Just absolutely no reason. My mom tells me all the time that it doesn't matter how old you get, you'll always be my son, and I'll always worry about you no matter where you're at or who you're with. I'm always going to be concerned unless I know that you're safe. And I always kind of used to laugh at it and kind of shrug it off when I was younger. But now that my son is away and he's at, in school at Western Oregon, I always think about what happens if something goes on at his campus. It was so funny when he was on his recruiting trip and talking to the coaches. And when I was on the Zoom with his coach, the first thing I asked him was, well, what's the safety like of the campus? And he was like, oh, Pops, it's good. I got you, but it's so funny. Like, that was the first thing I was worried about. Not, how quickly is he going to get some playing time? What's your plans for him? It's like, well, what's the safety like of the campus? And so totally understand as I get older each and every day, realize, what my mom said, and then just seeing the tragedy and hearing the tragic news about the young men there in Virginia just really breaks my heart. So all prayers and thoughts and, love and support goes out to the families, the friends, and the campus, because I'm sure they're very shook up as well. Now, as far as the Raiders concerned, got a lot to get to on today's show as well. They claimed former Charger first-round draft pick Jerry Tillery off of waivers. Jerry Tillery is a defensive tackle, and I remember when the Chargers actually waived him on Thursday, late Thursday last week, I thought, man, that would probably be a really good player for the Raiders to pick up. Not that he's some world beater, not that he's Aaron Donald, not that he's Ndamukong Suh, some of those, the greats or whatever. I mean, he's a guy that he does have some success in the league. He's been in the league 4 years, has about 10.5 sacks under his belt. But just because the Raiders have no pressure at all from the defensive tackle position, right? I mean, they have guys that are better at stopping the run, but they just really don't provide any pressure when it comes to getting to the quarterback. And again, he's not going to be a guy that's going to change the game. He's definitely not, but he can help provide some kind of competition and be a part of that rotation with Bilal Nichols and Andrew Billings. And I lost count of the Raiders roster right now, so I don't know if they have to make a corresponding move. I know as of right now, they have not made a corresponding move. Now, you might listen to it and all of a sudden, boom, something happens and they release somebody or they, waive somebody or whatever the case may be. But I don't know because, like I said, I lost count of exactly how many numbers they were at, how many roster spots, because they made so many moves as of late. There might have been an open spot. So Jerry Tillery is now a member of the Silver and Black. And I guess the one thing, if you're looking for a silver lining, because they've been so bad and only have 2 wins on the season, they were actually ahead of all these teams, a bunch of teams in waiver claims. And so, matter of fact, the Raiders, the Lions, the Panthers, the Colts, the 49ers, the Jets, the Giants, and Kansas City all put in waiver claims for the former first-round pick, Jerry Tillery. So he was assigned to the Raiders because they had the worst record. So they had the earliest claims. And so there's that. Again, 10 and a half sacks through 54 games with the Chargers. And we all know that the Raiders need as much help with the pass rush as possible. So we'll see what Jerry Tillery can bring. You know, he only has about $2 million base salary for 2022. The Chargers, they declined his fifth-year option. So all the Raiders have to pick up is the rest of the salary for the rest of the season. So that's not very much. And if you find maybe a diamond in the rough, maybe you find a guy that can help provide something and help out with that Patrick Graham-led defense, maybe you got something for obviously the rest of this season, but more importantly, what's going on the rest of the way. I mean, next season, it's all evaluation season the rest of this season, but they're building for the future, and that's all it is. And as much as nobody wants to hear building for the future, that's what they're doing. Regardless if that was the plan when everything started, when Josh McDaniels got hired, it's the plan now. Sometimes the best plan can be the plan that can be changed. And right now, we all know it's building for the future. Speaking of Josh McDaniels in the future, Mark Davis came out and gave him a vote of confidence on Monday as far as him being the head coach. And look, this is right now. Obviously, situations are fluid. Things could change quick, fast, and in a hurry. But right now, Mark Davis is sticking with Josh McDaniels, and he's saying that, hey, he's got his back, basically. He's not going anywhere. And Paul Gutierrez actually asked Josh McDaniels at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center on Monday in the media session, asked him, you know, you're talking about a lot of build. Have you had some reassurances from, you know, Mark Davis that everything is good, that, you know, regardless of the outside noise about, you know, you and your job status, that you're not going anywhere? And basically Josh McDaniels said, no, he hasn't told me that, but you know, I'm going to coach and I'm going to plan like I would always do. I'm going to coach the guys up for now, but I'm also going to plan for the future. Well, that apparently wasn't good enough because Mark Davis, he talked to Ed Graney from the RJ, also talked to Paul Gutierrez from ESPN, and basically gave Josh McDaniels a thumbs up. What he told Ed Graney, who was a guest on my radio show on Unnecessary Roughness, Raider Nation Radio 920 on Monday, he said, as far as Josh goes, I have no issues. I'm getting to know him a lot better. When you sign someone to a contract, don't you expect him to fulfill the contract? I like Josh. I think he's doing a fantastic job. You have to look at where we came from and where we're going. Again, that's Mark Davis on head coach Josh McDaniels and his job status. And I know a lot of Raider Nation and a lot of national media said, how is he doing a fantastic job? The team is 2-7. Well, when I had Ed Graney on my show on Monday, he said, look, you know, you got to take that with context. That was, you know, basically saying he's doing a fantastic job with what he's being asked to do and what he's being tasked to do right now. Obviously, the results are not there. Nobody wants to be 2-7. Even a team that didn't expect to be good doesn't want to be 2-7. So fantastic. He doesn't mean he's thrilled with the results. He just likes what's going on behind the scenes, what he's privy to, what he sees that we don't see on the regular. So Josh McDaniels, as of right now, according to the owner, Mark Davis, isn't going anywhere. Now, Jim Irsay from the Colts also said, you know, the same thing about Frank Reich about 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago. And we all know he's not the head coach anymore, and that now Jeff Saturday's in there. So obviously things could change. But as of right now, McDaniels isn't going anywhere, according to owner Mark Davis. So that's all I got for you in segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, kind of news and notes of the day. Coming up in segment number 2, players and maybe even coaches and front office guys a little frustrated with Darren Waller. Why do I ask that? Well, Vinny Bonsignore from the RJ and, of course, Raider Nation Radio 920 put out a really good piece. We'll talk about the piece. You'll hear from Vinny, and we'll talk about, you know, everything going on with Darren Waller, and we'll do it after I tell you about a couple of great sponsors here of the Locked On Raiders podcast, including Prize Picks. And Prize Picks is today's title sponsor. And the thing about Prize Picks is you're not competing against anybody. It's just you versus projections. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on that entry. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch: NFL, NBA, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, whatever the sport is, they have got you covered. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They have safe and fast withdrawals and currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. What you need to do right now, download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. You deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. You deposit $50, yep, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget, promo code Locked On at sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. I also want to tell you about Simply Safe. And I don't know if you thought about securing your home with home security, but if you've been putting it off, you're going to want to listen and listen up right now. All listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. It's their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Right now, it's the holiday time, so people get desperate. They want what you have. They want what you order. Porch Pirates, you ever hear of that? Yeah, anytime you order something and there's a box on your doorstep, it could be a victim of a porch pirate. Well, that's where Simply Safe comes in. And again, they're offering 50% off their award-winning security system so more families feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your Simply Safe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. Simply Safe was named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report, a third year in a row. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe. They capture critical evidence and verify that the threat is real so you can get priority police response. It is home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and out. Smarter ways to detect motion that alert you and only when a threat is real. Even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that I would recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com, and that's simply SIMPLI safe.com/lockedonnfl. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into the conversation about Darren Waller. And we heard on Sunday following the game, we heard a very emotional Derek Carr and basically talking about everyone's not bought in. Then we heard Devontae Adams, and you heard that on Monday's podcast in the locker room, and he basically let it be known everyone's not bought in. Well, the funny thing is, so many people want me to speculate and say, okay, well, who is it, Q? Who's the ones who aren't bought in? I'm not in the position to say that. I'm not in the position to tell who's not bought in because I don't know. If I knew, I could tell you, but I don't know. But when I see reports or I hear reports or I talk to people that are in the know, I don't have any problem coming to the table and talking about that. Now, I could think in my head that it could be a Darren Waller. Potentially, it could be a Hunter Renfrow. Maybe it's someone else. But now there's actually a name and something, some kind of concrete added to it right now. So if you didn't hear Monday's show and you didn't hear Derek Carr following the game on Sunday night, here's Derek Carr talking about players doing whatever they can to get on the practice field. A very emotional Derek Carr.
Sorry for being emotional. I'm just pissed off about some of the things, that a lot of us try and do just to practice. What we put our bodies through just to sleep at night. And for that to be the result of all that effort pisses me off. Pisses a lot of guys off. It's hard knowing what some guys are doing. Like I said, just to practice what they're putting in their body just to sleep at night. Like just so we can be there for each other. And I wish everybody in that room felt the same way about this place. And as a leader, that pisses me off, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so there you go. That 1 minute of Derek Carr's emotional, press conference that he had Sunday night following the game, following the loss to the Indianapolis Colts. So again, a lot of folks wanted anybody and everybody to speculate on who those players could be. Well, Vinny Bonsignore, who does a great job with the Las Vegas Review-Journal, also Raider Nation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness, put out a piece on the RJ. Sources, Raiders frustration grows over Waller's absence. So, okay, boom. Now there's a name. Now there's a name added to it, right? It's just one name. Not saying that it's the only name, but there's a name added to it. So I quick reached out to Vinny and was like, hey, man, you got to come on the show so you can at least for a couple minutes talk about what is, what's going on with Darren Waller and the frustration that's going on with him. So here's Vinny Bonsignore from my radio show on Monday, just talking about his piece. Again, it's called Raiders Frustration Grows Over Waller's Absence. And, is that who he feels like, or is that what's going on when Derek Carr and Devontae Adams are talking about players all not being bought in?
Yeah, it's definitely frustration growing that, basically the sense is he's not doing everything he needs to do to get himself on the football field. And either that or maybe it's time just to get on the football field. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of guys that are putting in all the work to get out there and to play and to be available. And there's a hamstring issue that has kept Darren out for basically 5 games, the last 5 games, and 3 more. That'll be 8 games that he'll have missed before he's eligible to come off the injured list. And at a time when the Raiders need everybody out there, especially their core pieces, there's a feeling like Darren, it's time to get out on the football field. Obviously, that's not going to happen regardless because he is on the injured reserve list, but it sounded like they were kind of, frustrated and said, all right, well, we're not going to keep going through this every week trying to get you ready and hoping that you're ready, only for you not to be ready. We'll just put you on the injured reserve list and hope to get you back when we can. But there's definitely frustration over this.
So there you go right there. And it's such a hard subject to talk about a guy being all the way bought in or a guy not doing everything he can to get onto the practice field and get out there and play. But the one thing I know is that Darren Waller is so badly missed in this offense. And, I remember PE in North Carolina calling a few weeks ago and thinking that, Darren Waller wasn't trying to work real hard to get back. And he was upset following the first game of the year when he slammed down the locker or closed the locker. And Devontae said something like, damn, Darren. And I remember saying, hey, I was right there in the locker room, but I wasn't looking Darren's way. I was looking at Devontae, and Darren was behind us. So I don't know how that got slammed and all that. But he thought then that, Darren's not really feeling what's going on. And that was just, that's just kind of his gut feeling. And it makes sense, right? I mean, Darren Waller goes from being basically the number one target to all of a sudden, he gets the leftovers from what Devontae Adams brings to the table. And again, I don't know if that's what the case is. All I know is that he wasn't out there in training camp very much. I know that for a fact. He was out there early, and I gave him credit for that. But then all of a sudden, he started missing a lot of time. And then he came back, and he really hasn't done too much at all this season, right? I mean, he's missed so many games, and who knows if he returns. I mean, he's got to miss at least 3 more games, but who knows? He might not come back at all this season for all we know, right? And then, of course, there was the conversation out there, and the reports came out that the Green Bay Packers had reached out and tried to, trade for Darren Waller. And so it just seems like there's a lot of question marks, and there's a lot of folks questioning his want to, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Darren Waller. And that's not good. That's a bad look. And again, I said it at during training camp, during preseason, you've got to give this potential three-headed monster, an opportunity to see what it looks like, right? I mean, a lot of folks said, don't give Darren Waller a contract extension. He's too old. He's got a couple years on his deal still. He's a guy that's injury prone. And right now, I mean, those are looking like the smart people because, well, he's not out there. And he did have a couple years left. And I don't know if right now the front office is having buyer's remorse. Like, hey, man, we just gave him this contract extension. Now he's not even working hard to get out there. And I'll tell you right now, I'll be the first to say, I never thought that Darren Waller would be the guy that they questioned. I never thought that Darren Waller would, be a guy that got paid and then all of a sudden took his foot off the gas, right? He always, to me, and this is just me, seemed like he was a guy that wanted to be out there with his guys and wanted nothing more than to be out there playing. And maybe he does. And maybe he just can't go because he's injured. And see, that's the hard part in this thing. This whole conversation is talking about a guy who potentially could be injured and really feels like he can't go. And, he might believe that, hey, he's doing everything he can to be out there, but the players in the locker room, the coaches might start questioning and say, yeah, we don't think you're doing enough. And you heard what Vinny said. Hey, you know what? Forget it. We're just going to put you on IR. And that's the last thing you want, because then you don't want resentment, and that can all of a sudden lead to a long-term problem with the silver and black. And so I don't know what's going to be the end result of this. I don't know if Darren Waller long-term is with the Raiders. I don't know if he goes into the offseason and changes are made. I don't know. But this could be the beginning of the end as far as Darren Waller concerned, if people in the front office in particular are really questioning Darren Waller and questioning his want to get on the field. If they're questioning him, I feel like he's as good as gone. If it's just the players, he has an opportunity to come back and smooth that over, but it's not a good look, especially when the best player on the team and Devontae Adams is calling you out. And then you got your quarterback on the podium in tears because he feels like everyone's not bought in. And again, they might not necessarily have been talking just to Darren Waller. There could be multiple guys. We found out on Monday from head coach Josh McDaniels that Matthew Butler and Neil Farrell Jr. Were 2 guys that were inactive on Sunday because of discipline, which is something that we talked about on Monday's show, that I thought that they were out, or that's the reason why they were out. And then Cleve Farrell, Vinny Bonsignore even said, yeah, Cleve Farrell was the other guy. That's why he was inactive. All 3 of those guys were out because of discipline reasons, and that's not good. especially Clee. Clee's been around, but maybe Clee's like, you know what? Hell, I only got a couple more games left here anyway, and then I'm gone. So what does it even matter? I mean, that can very well easily be the situation. But either way you look at it, man, it's not a good look. It's concerning. But now there's at least a name to the conversation that Derek was having and the conversation that Devontae was having. So hopefully, everything is able to be okay. Hopefully they're able to get over it and give themselves an opportunity at this this what I think could be a really good offense, but they can't be a really good offense if they're not all out there. And that's Devontae, that's Darren, and that's Hunter Renfrow. And right now, 2 of the 3 are not out there. That's all I got for you for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get into that, though, I do want to tell you about Built Bar, and really, we should probably pause the podcast for a second. All right, we pause? You chilling? Okay. Right now, you got to try this. And this is some new Built Bars. And it's not even new Built Bars. They're just reimagined flavors. Cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper. There's all kind of really good flavors. White chocolate peppermint granola. Yeah, I mean, think about that. White chocolate peppermint granola. Built's take on granola's bars, so it's more filling and insanely tasty. Candy cane brownie puff. Built puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. And that's what they are, clouds of marshmallows. But I tell you all the time, at Built.com, there's something for everybody. Maybe you're not a marshmallow person, no problem. They got everything you need. Maybe you are a granola person and really love granola bars. They have that as well. It's very low in calories, high in protein, and high in great taste. Something that you want to have, and it'll be a great snack if you ever need a snack on the run, if you're at the house working, if you're at the job working. You just want something light and something that's going to taste really good. Built Bars are the way to go. Right now, you can get 15% off your order at Built.com if you use the promo code LOCKEDON15. That's LOCKEDON15, all one word, LOCKEDON 15 at Built.com. Lots of great stuff, something for everybody. Check it out today. Again, Locked On 15 at Built.com for 15% off your order when you go check out. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Mikey the Barber calling out the 916. He's calling following the game, and he's talking about what he feels is going on this season with the Silver and Black. Here he is, Mikey the Barber.
Q, what up, man? It's Mikey the Barber. Just got done watching the end of the game. The culture and victory formation right now. Jeff Saturday looks like Bill Belichick, in his first ever NFL, game. He won against, of course, the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, man, just calling to just let you know that I'm not really that bent out of shape about it. I feel like the only way I can keep my sanity is to believe that these guys are tanking on purpose. So that's what I'm going to run with. Because if this is them trying their hardest, then I will lose my mind. Sorry, I was just about to cuss right now. I know how much work that is for you, so I want to make sure that I make this as easy as possible for you. Yeah, I'm calling tank job, buddy. See you next year.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. Thanks for keeping it clean. I do appreciate you. And look, I don't think it was ever a tank job. I really don't. You don't spend draft capital to acquire great talent if you plan on tanking or rebuilding. Like, you don't give up a first and a second round pick to go get Devontae Adams to say, hey, we're going to rebuild. But it clearly has turned into, a building block, right? It's turned into a valuation season. I don't think that that's ideally how everything went, but that's where everything's at right now. So it's unfortunate. It sucks, but here we go. There's 8 more games left in the regular season, and it's basically what can be or who can be what for for the future of the Silver and Black. And I feel like we've said that more times than not over the past, 10 years, and it does suck, but it is what it is at this point. Like Josh McDaniels always says. Thank you for that call, my man. I do appreciate you. Next up, I got a text from Raider Infiltrator. It says, yo, what up, Q? Hope all is well, bro. Well, a day to let the smoke settle, and here we go. I thought your Monday show was really informative and exactly what the nation's looking for. It's been evident that there's been some internal issues, and for weeks, I was getting the feeling that instead of the offensive players blaming one another and or Josh McDaniels, but maybe the offense and defense pointing the finger back and forth. But after listening to some sound bites from your show and some written commentary from guys like Vinny, maybe there could be even a bigger issue with more players than we think. I mean, I see a piece written about possibly Waller not doing everything he can do to be on the field with his teammates, referencing Carr and Josh McDaniels. Then, like you had mentioned, Chandler taking off immediately after games, Perriman and Farrell, healthy scratches, multiple defenders just looking lazy in their efforts during plays. We appreciate everything you do, Q, and always good to hear your content. Hopefully you can sub as a partial detective for us and keep giving us a scoop as best you can. Thanks, Q. We appreciate you. Again, Raider, infiltrator, and that's the thing about it, man. I'll give you any information that I get. Any information that I know is real. I don't want to come on here or the radio and just speculate and start throwing some stuff out there. And I really had somebody hit me up on my radio show on Monday and said, why not? Why not speculate? Oh, don't be scared to speculate. And why would I do that? Why, you know what I mean? Why would I just throw a name out there if I didn't know who it was? Why would I say, oh, you know what? Joe Blow is not bought in. And then come to find out Joe Blow is the hardest working dude on the team, right? I mean, why would I say that? That just makes me look like a clown. And I use the example. The only people that throw stuff out like that is like Skip Bayless's and Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp and cats like that on those shows, those debate shows, just to throw something out there. They're the ones that say stuff that they don't believe. I'm not built like that. And if that's what you're looking for, and I know you're not, but I mean, if that's what people are looking for, I'm not the guy. I am not the guy for you because I will never, ever do that. Clearly, these guys got it figured out, though. They're making millions, tens of millions of dollars. And my co-host, Damon, he was like, hey, I'll sell out. I'll do it. I'll throw it out there to make that kind of money. But I just can't do it. So maybe that's why I'm broke. But it's all good. I'm not going to be that guy. But thank you so much for the text. And, yeah, there's definitely some issues going on in that piece that Vinny put out there on the RJ. Really said a whole lot. And then having him on the show also helps. So thank you so much for that. I do appreciate you. Next up, got a call from Vegas Austin. He's calling to talk about what he feels is the biggest issue with the Raiders and what he thinks needs to happen. Here he is, Vegas Austin.
What's up, Q? It's Vegas Austin calling after our I think fourth straight loss now to the Colts, 3 of which were against bottom of the barrel teams. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but to me it all falls on Josh McDaniels. Last year, 2021 season, finished 10-7, interim head coach, lost arguably our top receiver in Ruggs, and still managed to make the playoffs. You add Devontae in the offseason, more or less the same team. Waller's been banged up, Renfro being banged up and on IR doesn't help, but more or less the same team with the addition of Devontae Adams and sitting at 2-7, the same amount of losses as last year, but with 8 fewer wins. And I don't want to wish poorly on another man's job, but I think McDaniels has to go. I think at this point, any Raider fan that vouches for him is, I'd like to hear their argument, I guess, at this point. Pretty hard not to point the finger at McDaniels. So I know there's a lot of politics and a lot of long-term investment in McDaniels. So maybe you're more privy to that information than I am. But from a fan point of view, it's really tough to watch all of our favorite players like Carr, Crosby, Renfro, mostly Jacobs this year too, watching them take hard losses when it seems that it's, they're all giving their best efforts. So curious your thoughts, Q. Always going to listen, always going to support the silver and black. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for your call, my man. And, it's easy to look at 2-7 and say McDaniels has got to go. But and believe me, I understand. But there's 2 things on this subject. One, and this is what I truly believe, you can't keep moving on year after year after year, hoping good things are going to come from the next coach, you just can't keep doing that. I mean, the Raiders turn over coaches so much. And 2, I think financially the hit will be way too much for another coaching staff just to go out and hire another coaching staff. I mean, think about that. Mark Davis is still paying Gruden's coaching staff. He's paying everyone else Bisaccia. He's paying a lot of different folks. And so to be able to have to pay McDaniels and his staff as well, and then another coach, I just don't see that happening. Again, if things get real crazy and get real embarrassing, these final 8 games, anything's possible. You saw what Jim Irsay did in Indianapolis. I just don't see the Raiders, and I don't see Mark Davis doing that. Now, if things don't look really good next season, then I could see him saying, all right, you know what? Hey, we gave this a little bit of a run and it doesn't work. But I just, again, I could be wrong and I'd have no problem with that. Of course, I'll come out here and be the first to say I was wrong, but I just don't see it happening with McDaniels. Somebody will be the sacrificial lamb. Somebody will lose their job. Some coordinator, somebody will be the example like, hey, you got to be better or you're going to not stick around. Something's going to happen. I just don't think Josh McDaniels is going to be the one that's served up on a stick like that. So thank you so much for that call. I do appreciate you. One more text, and we'll close out the show. A text from Jimmy S. in Houston. Q, I'm getting the sense that one of the players not giving it everything that Carr was alluding to is Darren Waller. I hope that doesn't mean Hunter Renfrow is also one of them since they were both put on IR. I'm a bit surprised that Cleve Farrell seems to be another one as he was inactive. If he doesn't take advantage of every opportunity he's given, he may be done with the NFL after the season or even earlier. Tell me I'm crazy, please, but the IR designations and the retire of Blake Martinez seem to make more sense after what Carr was saying yesterday. It really is sad that it's falling apart with these guys so suddenly. Jimmy S. in Houston, I think you're spot on. Straight up. I think that sums it up perfectly. I probably should have used your text for segment number 2 and just called it a day because that's what it definitely feels like. And according to Benny and what he had to say, it really feels like that. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully Hunter Renfrow isn't one of those guys, like you said. Blake Martinez, Coach McDaniels just said, hey, man, his body couldn't go. He was surprised. He didn't know that it was coming, but just said his body couldn't go anymore. And, I mean, it is what it is. Blake Martinez was never going to be a long-term solution. He was just a sure tackler that the team had and led the team in tackles against the Jaguars a couple days before he retired. But it just, again, he probably didn't want to stick around for what's going on right now. Maybe didn't want to, get to, I don't know, stick to whatever to the plan was. Didn't want to be one of those guys that bought in. I don't know, but clearly he didn't want to be around. He decided to go and stick with his Pokemon cards and go be a dad and not play football. So it is what it is. I hate to keep saying that, but that's exactly what it is. So that's all I got time for on today's show. Thank you so much, Raider Nation, again, as always, for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we'll have more news and notes. I will definitely get to the Raiders locker room sound, Deron Harmon, Sam Webb. You'll hear from both of those guys. We'll have, again, news and notes. We'll have calls and texts. We'll start to turn the page to the Denver Broncos, and we'll do it on tomorrow's show. So, Raider Nation, until then, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family, and most importantly, as always, just win, baby.